everybody. Welcome to the Tech Raptor podcast. I'm Robert Scarpanito, your features editor.
With Doggett, site founder.
Andrew Stretch, anime boy editor.
Anime boy editor. That is a scary editor title, my friend. Otten is not with us this week. He is, I don't know, buried
Playing
under
Fortnite
Sonic.
is in a
Sonic.
big competition this weekend.
Oh, that's a good, actually, yeah, because Fortnite season started today. And
Fortnite season. We'll add that in post.
Enter the number here. Yeah, so I'm sure he's jumping in there playing with all of his best friends, Goku and Jerry from The Witcher.
He's super excited that Deku from My Hero Academia is joining, let me tell you.
You
wouldn't
really
shut
are.
up about
That
it.
sounds just like Otten.
Yeah, really are anime boy editor, aren't you, Stretch?
I know some anime boys.
Yeah, I like Goku. He's cool. This week we're going to talk about Midnight Suns. We've got Sonic Frontiers on the table and little snippets and pieces from a little-known Final Fantasy game called Crisis Core. But first, let's jump into some news. James Gunn, the new Kevin Feige of DC, has said that he wants the DC games that are coming out to be integrated into the upcoming DC universe, like the MCU, but DCCU. So we're gonna see maybe a little bit more connection among all the different Marvel or DC properties. It's all gonna be one universe, allegedly.
I look forward
hopeful.
to flying through rings as Superman again. That's just really what I miss the most about video games. I would love to be Henry Cavill, former Witcher, flying through some rings in Metropolis.
Well, what I can't wait for is Justice League 2 when they're fighting, I don't know, Darkseid. And, they're like, oh, we have to stop him from doing the evil thing. But first, Flash, I need you to save that Russian family. And I need to fly through the 20 rings of Gamora to save the world. And then there's the video game tie-in, right? The spinoff where you play that part, and then that's
It's just
all
an endless
connected.
runner.
Yeah, that would be the most monkey paw aspect of this statement. What if it's not that there will be like separate standalone titles that will tie into the greater story of the DC universe, but they're just going back to like licensed video game movies? Like, oh, we've got the Flash movie coming out. Let's release the Flash video game. Like, look, here's the part where he beats up a woman in a bar.
I'm wondering too what a Flash video game would even look like. Whether it just be Sonic Frontiers but red,
Probably be
right?
blurry.
Oh, that too. Yeah, yeah.
A Sonic Frontiers-esque game would be good.
It could be.
They do the Flash powers pretty well in DC Universe Online. That's the free-to-play MMO. That at the start you can either pick your like method of fast transportation being the ability to like climb the super speed or flight. And flight was kind of boring, but the super running in that is actually like really, really, really fun. Like really good to get into.
DC Universe Online was pretty solid, at least back when I played it. Like it was a good adaptation of just
like
superheroes in general. Yeah. Marvel Heroes was great at that as well.
Do you guys think that wasn't there a Matrix MMO and the end of that MMO was integrated? It's part of the core story and understanding of Matrix. Do you think like
literally canon?
Yeah. So do you think maybe if they ever like they do the DC like MMO, right? They have that, and then if that ends, what if that's like a Flashpoint, or something like that, where it like resets the whole universe?
They just did that with the DC animated films, because people shit on the live action films, rightfully so.
Animated stuff is good.
But since I think 2011 or 2012 until like 2 years ago, like 90% of the DC animated films were part of the same universe and the same continuity. And then they just kept building. It's like for people who enjoyed like Justice League or Justice League Unlimited, like if you want a big connected universe of DC heroes, check out the animated movies. But they had the last one, which was a big fight with Darkseid. The world got fucked up. Like Wonder Woman ended up half cyborg, and like it's just like so many people died. It was just horrendous, so bad, everything. And it ends with Constantine like resting a hand on Flash and being like, run, you can fix this, reset all of this, like wipe this out. And then that was like the end of that continuity, literally.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that'll happen in a game now, right? And then that'll give them the chance where like Henry Cavill can hang his cape. We can bring in a new Superman or something, you know?
Yeah, it's the DCEU is in such flux between what actors are and are not in it, what plans they do and don't have. You know, they're definitely picking up some steam with, ironically, Shazam and Black Adam going pretty well. But you know, it's gonna be interesting that they're like, we're gonna keep adding to all of this, and it's like, well, I already don't know where this is, like which stories are canon, aren't canon. I guess because Superman showed up to eat lunch with the kid with the crutches at the end of Shazam tells us that that's all in the same universe.
Yeah, but then the Robert Pattinson Batman, at least my understanding is it was not in any, like it was just its own.
I think that one's just going to be standalone. But then that also has a TV show coming out about the Penguin.
The Penguin, and then we all thought Joker was going to be
that show.
No.
There's like Gotham, and then wasn't there the Penguin spinoff of that already? Or am I misremembering?
No, I think Gotham was its own show, right? That was
had a spinoff.
Its own thing.
No, so the upcoming one is just meant to be the Colin Farrell one. We did have a Pennyworth spinoff of the other one.
That's what I was thinking of.
Gotham.
That's
Batman's
the spinoff.
butler.
Yeah, that's the spinoff from Gotham. And then I guess there's a Batwoman coming.
Well, there's Batgirl.
It's already out.
No, there
I
was
not kept up with any of this.
There was going to be the Batgirl movie, but then that was like kind of this, like the thing that kicked off all of the mass cancellations and shit at DC.
Well, with all the Discovery merger, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh.
There's been a Batwoman series for the last 3 years. That is part of what they're dubbing the Arrowverse now.
Yeah, that's Arrowverse, because then there's also meant to be kind of like what Gotham Knights is as a video game. They were going to, or they are going to make that its own TV show, because Titans is still going, and they've got the Robin from that Titans, and they've got Batwoman from over here, and I think the Flash TV show is ending this year. I really hope that they just take Grant Gustin from the TV show, pick him up and move him over into the movie universe and just plop him down there.
Yeah.
You're a movie star now.
Because to our knowledge, he hasn't kidnapped anybody yet. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think one of the difficulties I'm seeing with this idea of maybe the video games will be part of the DCCU, right? Is like, I mean, I think we've already experienced, we're what, in the year 14 of the MCU, right? Like we've like the MCU is almost old enough to vote. We've gotten to the point where, and this is a little while ago now, where people have been saying, oh, there's so much to keep up with. You know, like, casual fans, it's like, oh man, that's a lot. There's a lot of movies like this before even the Avengers Infinity Game and Endgame, or Infinity War and Endgame, right? People were already like getting a little bit of Marvel fatigue. The TV shows don't really help with that. And TV shows are a bigger barrier to entry than a movie, because that's like 6 to 9 episodes to sit through, right? A video game, depending on the video game, that can be like a 15 or 20 hour commitment to learn, you know, this secret thing about that, or this secret thing about this, right? Like to then have it all tie in at the end with like an Infinity Crisis or something like that. That's
kind of
going
how
to
I
be
fell
huge.
off of the Arrowverse stuff. Was like you had the Flash and you had Gotham and you had Arrow, and like it just got to a point where I was like, this is too many TV shows to keep up with.
Gotham wasn't part of it, so I'm going to immediately
not part
see
of
your
it,
problem
but
there.
Yeah.
Actually,
all of this DC stuff kind of going on at the same time from a TV show perspective. A movie's a movie, right? That's like an hour and a half, 2 hours or so.
right.
But a full season on TV is what, like 10 to 21 hours, depending on how many episodes. Like that's
Right.
it's a lot to commit to.
Yeah, because there was a time, like just a few months ago, I committed to like, okay, let's catch up on all things MCU, and that took a while, but that's like maybe a couple weeks. So there's just a lot of movies, which you
Mhm.
just dedicate an afternoon to one or two movies, right?
Mhm.
You make progress pretty quickly. But once you start throwing in a video game, where it's not only just like you have about 15 hours of content to get through, but then there's a possibility like, what if it's a difficult video game? Or what if there's a lot of boring bullshit in between you and the ending, right? Where like you don't want to get through it, but then you have to get through it to find out how Batman gets the Iron Man suit from Marvel. Like there's a lot to get through. It's a high barrier of entry, especially for a very casual fan who might just be in it to like, I'm looking for the next Infinity War and Endgame vibe,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, if it's someone who just like idly watches the Marvel films on the weekends after they've already come out on streaming services, then playing a video game on a $500 console, that's just
Asking a lot.
yeah.
Yep.
Which probably means that it's either they will release it, but then they will have like like the next movie will have the first 20 minutes be characters vaguely alluding enough to relevant plot that is necessary so that they can just carry on and it's not required reading, or that just the topic of the games is going to be pretty insignificant.
Yeah. Because I'm thinking of Gotham Knights, right? And that game, I mean, Stretch, you tried to play through it.
Keyword tried.
Yeah, it was rough, right?
They just filled it with so much bloat.
Right. And if that's a core part of the future vision of the universe, that's a tough pill to swallow, huh?
Wasn't
Yep.
there another co-op one coming out? Is
Yeah,
it-
the Justice
that's
League.
Is it
Suicide
Justice
Squad
League?
kills the Justice League.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, where Superman's evil because of Brainiac, right?
Mhm.
Was it Brainiac? Yeah.
Yeah, Brainiac took all the Justice League over, which is definitely not the same as the fantastic Justice League versus Teen Titans animated film, where it was Trigon that took over everyone and it was up to the Teen Titans to save the day. Nor was it anything related to the recent Battle of the Super Sons, which only came out a few months ago, which is Starro showing up and taking over the Justice League, and it's up to Batman and Superman's sons to save the day.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I'm just glad that we're finally seeing an evil Superman. I feel like it's a really fresh take on the character that we just haven't seen before.
I'm surprised that people aren't wanting like Red Sun Superman to be in a game to beat up.
Yeah. I think I'd be more excited about this news if this news came out around the time the Injustice games came out, because those actually had a good DC story and it was interesting. And I'm like 90% sure that's where Scott Snyder was going, or Zack Snyder was going with his initial DC vision with like the 4-hour Snyder cut and shit. That was totally building up to a Injustice inspired story. But
if you're interested in checking out more Injustice, you can check out the Injustice animated movie that they came out with last year.
Is that bad? I heard it was bad, right?
No, I mean it's like the start of the they kind of like let it happen, but then give it a happy ending. But they like it's like an 8 out of 10 that tries to do a forward tumble and stick the landing and then snaps its ankle.
Well, because the Injustice comics are legit very good.
They're so fucking good.
You get to see Alfred Pennyworth, the butler, beat the shit out of Superman for a bit. It's fucking great. High recommend. Let's shift into our next story of the day. It's a very surprising story. I hope you're both sitting down because this is going to be shocking. The United States Army, did you know that they have been pouring millions of dollars into esports and gaming in order to recruit Gen Z and millennials?
Nope, never seen them on Twitch.
Shocking.
Our taxpayer dollars hard at work recruiting children.
I hate it so much. It's so gross and predatory.
Yeah,
It is.
Can't believe they've done this.
Yeah. From the organizations that have JROTC at high schools, really just kind of prepping you to go into the Army.
It's all like if you're
military
like feeling
complex.
like you want to do it, then sure.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to tell anyone don't do it, but this is like Simpsons fucking superliminal advertising of like
Vivat et Niage.
Yeah. Go join the okay.
Yeah.
I should clarify, like, we're not shitting on the Army or people who serve, but the tactics that are used to recruit, especially through gaming, and what their focus is with this, multi-million dollar, what they're calling investment, is interesting. I mean, $600,000 they wanted to offer to IGN to promote this
the
stuff.
Army. Yeah.
And it's just like, first of all, that is a lot of money. Even
That's
for
hard to
IGN.
say no to.
Yeah. And then, it's just interesting, especially with the tactics we've seen on Twitch and kind of what they've come under fire for the last couple of years around streaming and recruitment efforts on Twitch. Again, a lot of the people watching Twitch, honestly, are probably under 18. So very impressionable. And, Call of Duty ties into that. We were talking about America's Army before the podcast. I remember trying that in college just to see. But it's definitely, it always feels predatory to me when you're marketing to kids.
Being in middle school in Australia and learning about America's Army, being like, oh, that's gross.
Yeah. I think that's the tough thing, right? It's because I grew up around the military. I went to a school on a military base in Korea. So I was inundated with it a lot, right? And what's unfortunate is there are a lot of good reasons to get into the military. Like, they pay for your schooling and they give you, like, if you have no direction in life, it's not a bad place to go to, like, figure yourself out, but it's also not like the only option, right? But there are legitimately good reasons for yourself as a human being to go into the military. The problem is that they're advertise or subtly advertising, or like, I don't know if advertising is the right word, but they're using things like military, Call of Duty, shoot those bad guys, like, right? Like, that's their marketing, not the good, like, not the better parts of what the military can offer. So like, these kids are getting into the military like, I can't wait to shoot the big M4 and the guns and blow shit up, and it's like, that sucks, because war is bad. I mean, I don't think we need a controversial statement. War is not. War is bad.
Hey, now.
Shut it down now.
Right? War not good. And if these kids are getting into the Army and their impression of the Army is, I can't wait to blow stuff up like in Call of Duty, not great generally,
There's a lot more to it, right? There's it's not just about the fighting, it's about the structure, there's code of ethics that basically are upheld across each branch. It's not just you go through boot camp and boom, you're in a war. There's a lot more to it, and that's what typically gets glossed over, is kind of the structure and the like you said, the benefits, even in terms of like what you can learn. I know people who went into the Army for communications, came out, and they're now deep into cybersecurity. Like, there's a lot of positive jobs that you can don't necessarily have to go into a war zone to learn counterterrorism, counter hacking, all that kind of stuff that's are becoming very useful skills in our growing shitty cybersecurity world.
Or like, if you get into the military by way of like West Point Academy or the Air Force Academy, right? Like, where they're training you to be an officer, like, you're learning a lot of life skills that will benefit you whenever you retire or choose to leave the military. Like, none of those skills are going to go to waste generally, but I don't know. It does feel really weird and sleazy, but also like same shit, different day, kind of, right? Because the military has been doing this in the gaming space for can I say decades plural now? Is that
I mean,
was
yeah, America's
America's
Army
Army
was
to
early
early
2000s,
right?
Yeah,
Wow, decades.
early to late. I think I was in college. 2008? Probably played it 2009, and it had already been out. So yeah, mid 2000s.
Wow.
Well, and then there's also the influence on the movie industry as well,
Right.
and
Well,
the permission you
that's
have to get to be able to film some of these, badass military scenes. I guess like Transformers, very close relationship with the Army and the Navy and all that kind of stuff. So,
I mean, the first
it's
Iron Man
interesting.
movie, lest we forget, was
That's
very
true.
pro-military.
That's true. I forgot about that.
It was very much a post 9/11 world. I mean, we live in one, but like that movie made sure you knew this was a post 9/11 world.
Was it that my father told me that you don't want to have the best weapon, you want to have the best weapon that you only need to fire once, and then just lights up a mountain range. It's like, ooh, that's not okay.
Yeah.
Hey, why don't we calm that down a bit?
Yeah. With the, what was it? It was the Jericho missiles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this isn't really anything new. It's just, we have more proof thanks to Vice getting those documents that
Be aware
still
of who
happening.
is advertising at you,
yes.
because that's a good thing that you should be aware of in every facet of life.
Always do your research. Like, ads never display the full truth. We've been through similar things where, I've come across a service for the site. Everything looked great on paper, and then we get in and it's completely different than what's promised. So always do your research regardless of what the medium is.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
And I want to be clear too, right? That if you are someone who's, 17, 18, 19 right now listening, and you are thinking about getting into the military, I don't want this segment to be like, no, military bad, like never do it, right? Because like, again, there are good reasons. Just make sure what you want in life, you are doing it for the right reasons, and you're getting into the military for reasons that will help you, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Because you can always play Call of Duty on the side. No one's forcing you to do it in real life, right? Like,
True.
Yeah.
It's true. And to add on to that, cybersecurity, great profession right now.
Yeah.
Great place to be.
Yeah, like there's a lot of internet shit out there. You know that?
We put out some. So my day job, I am a account manager for an IT firm. We manage, I don't know, 100,000 or so computers, and in the last quarter, the number of attacks has gone up 62%. From our tool sets, which
Why
is
are you
just
preventing them?
crazy.
What's wrong with your
We're
fucking company,
preventing
right?
them, but we're tracking all of it. So it's like malicious logins went up 62%, which for us was like millions of attempts. It's crazy to see over the last 12 months how much things have ramped up. So yeah,
That's so
make sure
crazy.
you're going to the right
Even though-
websites, people.
That means even you at home, like, Rut, for example, like you who was born to a mother whose maiden name was, and who was born on what street?
And the last four of your
can
social
get into
are
cybersecurity.
right.
Hey, what's the name of your first pet? I can make you a really funny drag name out of it.
Yeah, so those Twitter tweets you see out there where somebody's like, "Hey, what is this information?" Maybe make sure it's not a security question.
Yeah.
When you
It's
answer
soul
it,
phishing.
which we have seen.
And, it's just a good reminder too. If your password is password, probably don't.
Dinopass.com, use the strong version, add some special characters, you're good to go.
There you go.
Yeah, I'll always recommend LastPass.
That too.
Yeah. Or just get your password tattooed somewhere very not prominent, like your forearm.
Or your
When
butthole.
people look, yeah.
What?
Hey, if you don't want people to read your password, that's a good place for it to be.
But hey, then if you forget
How
what
do
your
you
password
read it?
is, yeah, how do you? I mean,
I get
guess
a mirror.
Yeah.
What kind of a dumb question is that?
Stretch's wife walks in on him like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I forgot my
I
password."
locked out of the bank again, dear.
I forgot my Pornhub password. I gotta check.
Well, I was
Oh,
going
that's
to
so
buy
messed up.
flowers for your mother, and I forgot the account.
Yeah. Well, it's either remembering my mom's maiden name or looking at my butthole. I got.
This segment is so cursed.
I don't see any problem.
Speaking of cursed, let's get into our last news story because it's a fucking doozy. It's a wild one. Smash World Tour was canceled earlier last week. The people who put on the tournament put out this big like medium.com post from Video Game Boot Camp. They said that they are ceasing any operation furthermore of the Smash World Tour and implied that Nintendo brought the boot down on them and said, no, you can't. And then Nintendo came out and said, we never said that. And we were trying to figure out licensing, and they are okay to do anything else for the rest of the year, and we will figure out 2023's licensing situation. And then Video Game Boot Camp clapped back and was like, that's a lie, and we don't believe that. And, well, that's not true, and that they said that we have to stop. And throughout all of this too, I think there's been Video Game Boot Camp has been implying that Panda, the other esports company that does a big Smash tournament, that does an official, quote unquote official one,
they're licensed, yeah,
they're licensed, that their CEO Dr. Bunny was kind of trying to shift things in the back end and behind the scenes, so that way essentially they'd be the only Smash tournament because they're the only licensed one, et cetera, right? And there's just a lot of back and forth, he said, she said here, right? Like Nintendo came back and was like, that's not true, and we care about our Smash players, we care about Smash fans, and we want what's the best for them. And then, Video Game Boot Camp again clapped back and was like, this is so confusing, we don't even know how to understand what this is, because this is just crazy. And then Panda issued its own statement, or they were saying it's disappointing, right, to see these attacks, quote unquote attacks, on their hard work ethic, and that they did admit that there have been some unscrupulous dealings with their CEO Dr. Bunny, but that they are rectifying. Dr. Al, is it not Dr. Allen? Panda Global
it says
acknowledged.
Dr. Allen in the statement.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm not sure where you're getting.
His last name is Bunny.
Yeah, Alan Bunny.
Oh, Alan Bunny. Okay.
Yeah. So with all that, they said, okay, there have been some, so we acknowledge that, and
They're saying he's not very warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, you could say that, yeah. And then now, I think the most recent development, as of 20-ish hours ago from when we're recording this podcast, this was like maybe Saturday midday or so, around 80% of commentators and players, like esports players, licensed or affiliated with Panda, have resigned from Panda.
Mm-hmm.
That is the latest.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's been crazy to kind of read through and watch this. It's very interesting. Communication with Nintendo is hard. I'll be the first to admit that from our end, right? And that has nothing to do with their PR people. It's just they're a massive organization. So I wouldn't be surprised if part of this was some sort of communication issue on either side. But once you throw some of this Panda stuff in, it gets really murky and questionable in terms of like, was Panda leveraging, like talking to Nintendo, like, hey, don't license them. And then it got to the point where Smash World Tour planned their championship like they'd been planning to do all year. And then Nintendo was like, oh, shoot, we need to nip this in the bud, despite letting it go the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
It's interesting that Nintendo says we were unable to come to an agreement when Smash World Tour is saying there was no, like, they were trying to have dialogue and come to an agreement, but Nintendo was like, well, we'll get back to you. And then all of this happened. Yeah. This whole thing is strange. It's not surprising, but it is strange and shady.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really looking forward to seeing how everything like shakes out in the wash, kind of thing. Like, this will be ongoing for a thing, and then someone will have their tell-all story, whatever.
Yeah.
But from all of the stuff that I've heard about the Panda CEO, it very much seems like it's kind of like this is a CEO who has grown a business, but maybe like has had a business advisor, whispering in their ear, and they've been making aggressive plays, only to forget that like the Smash Bros community is so grassroots. Like there are still melee tournaments because the community is so strongly like vehemently for melee tournaments that from a business aspect, 100% it is a smart play to edge out the competition so that you have a larger slice of the pie that you can take. You can have more room for upscaling, build out more events throughout the year, different locations. From a business sense, 100% makes sense. Like I cannot fault them from a business aspect attempting that. It's a shitty thing to do, especially when it's edging out other people. But because Smash is so grassroots and so about community first, what you have done is like the person in a position with the most power that you could slowly upscale, you have shot yourself in the foot.
Yes. Because that's the thing too, right? Is like the fighting game community, like as far as communities and fandoms in the gaming space go,
They're the tightest.
pretty wholesome and tight, right? Like they're really all about having fun. Like if you've never really watched a fighting game tournament like Evo or whatever, I mean it can seem, intimidating at first because like these two people are fighting each other in the game. Like they're intense, they're competitors, like it's UFC shit, right? But outside of the competition, everyone is just like, we want everyone to have fun. That's the whole vibe. And
They're quick to throw bad actors out.
Yes.
Very quick.
Yes. Yeah. If you know anything about the Smash community in the past, I don't know, like 2 years or so, they're pretty quick to throw out the rotten apples, right? But this CEO, if all of what is alleged is true, has been trying to say, hey, we want to monopolize the fun. We don't want that other party to have fun, which is very antithetical to everything the FGC generally stands for,
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a shame because I think that, like you said, the FGC is very tight knit. They all know each other. That's just kind of the mindset around those types of games. They're nowhere near as big as Call of Duty or Counter-Strike or Valorant. So it is smaller and tight knit. And when you have things like this happen, Saturday makes sense for a lot of people to be like, we don't want to be associated with this.
Yeah. And I do wonder too how much that tight knitness comes from like Call of Duty is pretty easy to pick up and understand, right? Like in terms of mechanics, right? Shooters are pretty basic. Fighting games, I feel like it takes forever to just be okay, not even good, just like okay, right? And I wonder if like everyone knows that, so no one, like if you're at least a semi-decent person, you're like, I'm not going to be shitty to you, like I actually kind of want to help you, like here's a basic combo that I learned when I was learning that character, right? And I feel like that kind of mindset is part of what's core to this, right? Is that they want no barrier to entry because fighting games already have a high barrier to entry. And now this is adding a bullshit barrier of entry that no one wants.
That's why I love wholesome Call of Duty clips, because it's just completely opposite of what you typically see from Call of Duty.
Have you found one?
Oh yeah, TikTok, man. Look up Slater. He uses like a kid's voice changer, and they are the funniest videos of him just like trolling people and like in a really positive way, like uplifting his teammates and making jokes throughout the whole thing. It's those kind of there's now a cash cab guy who just drives around the map, picks people up, and has them answer historical questions about Call of Duty, which is really funny.
That's kind of
but
nice.
just like that type of stuff is completely abnormal for kind of that scene, and we're starting to see it pick up with like TikTok and YouTube Shorts and stuff like that. So
yeah,
bring more wholesome stuff to games, please.
The Panda Cup finale is set to take place December 16th. So they've got about a week, 2 weeks. But at the moment they have limited staff and little to no players. So it's going to be very interesting to see what more comes out on such a small schedule. And how for any competitors that continue to hang around, how the community will even react to that. Yeah, because that's also like you don't want to stick around to play the game you love if it also means that you're going to have a reputation put onto you.
Right, exactly. Yes, this is still a developing story. Definitely like go to techraptor.net if more updates happen this week. We might write about it there. You can keep track of it, but yeah, I'm glad to see that it's shaking out, at least so far, in a way that's leaning toward the wholesomeness and fun, or like, people want to defend that. I'm glad that that's at least where we are so far. Well, let's shift over and talk about some video games. I think let's start off with the big one, Crisis Core Reunion.
He's back. Zach is back.
Zach is back. Now, before we lay any, let's lay some ground rules, right? Like in terms of embargo.
So
I think you can only talk about the first chapter right now.
At the moment, I can only talk about up to chapter 3, which is the chapter where Zach goes to. Nope, that's way later.
Oops,
it's very early on.
Let's not spoil it. Yeah, like how many hours ish? Like we're talking couple, right?
Probably the first 4 or 5 hours of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, to anyone who's familiar with the original, there's like a shit ton of optional missions and stuff that you can do that unlock as you play or unlock when you meet certain criteria. So it probably took me about 8 or 9 hours to get to this point.
Right, but if you mainlined it pretty early on.
Yeah. Yep.
So this is the remake of a PlayStation portable game.
Yeah. So I did say on the chat that I had with Chris on Reunion that went up on our YouTube on the 29th that you can go and check out. We'll link it below. I did incorrectly comment there that, with Crisis Core being off the PSP, there's now zero reason to own a PSP anymore. But someone in the comments made a really great mention of Dissidia, the Final Fantasy fighting game, which the first 2 entries of that are still stuck on the PSP.
So there's 2 reasons still to own a PSP.
Yeah.
What's funny too, the PSP version of Battlefront 2 is coming out on PS4, PS5 soon too.
Yeah. So
which is interesting. So there seems to be, maybe we'll get Daxter.
Yeah, that's what I've been waiting for all my life.
There's very little still happening on the PSP.
So, Crisis Core Reunion. Mm-hmm. How similar or close is it to the original?
So far, for the first 3 chapters, absolutely identical story-wise, which was pretty interesting to see because it was quite early on in the Final Fantasy VII remake. Like, I think it was the first time that Cloud and Aerith meet in the remake that they had that first Spectre show up.
Yeah, the whispers of fate. Yeah.
So there's no whispers of fate so far as of chapter 3. So far, it seems to just be a remaster. It's a good-looking remaster. Some of the cutscenes look a teeny bit like fuzzy around the edges. You can kind of tell that it was either remade but tried to keep some of the same quality of the original, or it was like upscaled and they still had a non-PSP looking version of the original video files somewhere.
I should ask too, what platform are you playing it on?
I'm playing it on PlayStation 5.
Gotcha.
Because it is available on Xbox, everything. PC, Nintendo Switch. I think Nintendo Switch is going to be a real sweet spot platform for this to live on. Yeah. Performance issues aside, don't know what those might be like if there are any. It's just kind of an eventuality with the Switch. Sure. But with those like 300 plus missions that you go to, that's the kind of like small pick up, play a mission, put down kind of thing that the Switch is really good for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So far, story seems about the same. Mm-hmm. Graphically, it looks based on the trailers I've seen, it looks improved. Yeah. Just
graphically, it looks way better. They have redone the summon cutscenes. Like you get the Ifrit summon at the beginning of chapter 2 if you do the mission, and like the cutscenes of all of like the different summon and limit break animations are really, really fucking nice to see. But also by the time you're done, you know, there's a skip option as well, in case you don't want to watch the cutscene in the middle of your game for a big attack animation.
Right. Now, from what I remember of the original, because I never played it, the combat was weird from what I remember hearing. It didn't have like a roulette system of some kind or something like that.
Yeah, that's how all of like the limit breaks and stuff trigger. It does the game in terms of difficulty of a Final Fantasy game. Crisis Core is probably one of the easiest Final Fantasy games you'll ever play. That like just through general playing, but also the roulette wheel can give you all kinds of benefits and boons, just like mid combat. And the wheel is like always spinning. It'll spin, it'll rest, and then it will just start up again. That you use the limit breaks and the summons when like the 3 face icons match. But then if you have like, if the middle digit of the roulette wheel happens to land on a 7, then for a certain period of time, your MP cost is now 0. Or something for like, if you get a 7, any number, and a 7, it'll mean that you take no physical damage for a certain amount of time. And then it goes all the way up to, you know, you can trigger invincibility for a set period of time. So you've got all of these like random boons that are fun. They definitely shift up the way that you would play and the way that you have combat, that you might go from fighting an enemy that's weak to fire and you run out of MP, so you need to start using special attacks or your regular attack, and then suddenly you get the notification, oh, all MP is free, and you're like, fuck yeah, like heal up, start spamming attacks again, and it kind of keeps you pushing, shifting, altering your strategy.
Right.
The game did also used to have all of your attacks were on like a single bar. So if you wanted to use the fire attack, then you would need, and you were currently using your regular attack, you'd need to hit the right trigger, like to move over in that menu to get to fire so that you could use it. In this one, you just hold down a button and then you've got 6 shortcuts for all of those special materia. So
That's
it has gotten the update for controller quality of life.
So on the whole, would you say though the combat feels pretty much the same as the OG?
Whole, I would say that my password is BF9. No, okay.
Oh, I see.
There we go.
There it is. Am I your mirror now?
Yeah. Could I have you repeat the question, please? I was thinking about my butthole.
Would you say the combat is about the same as the OG? Like if you play the original,
combat has been greatly improved.
Improved. Okay.
It's faster, quicker to adjust strategies in the middle of combat, more rewarding. It's fun. It's really fun, but game's fucking easy. And that's before you can. That's before you even go into the kinds of ways that you can fuck with and like make busted equipment to very much alter your character.
Right. But seems like it's a good game so far. It seems like you're having fun with it. Seems like you're enjoying.
Yeah. And I was a big fan of the original as well. The storyline is great. Kind of the story of what happened to the other 3 first soldiers, aside from Sephiroth, who we all know cracks and goes fucking evil. Right. But it's a really fantastic prologue story. It's kind of, the story that they tease about Cloud remembering. It's when Cloud self-inserts him into the big Nibelheim reactor debacle and becoming a first-class soldier.
Right.
Everything.
Like if you played through the remake and then you got to the end and you were very confused, this game will probably answer some questions for you If you didn't already Google them, 2 years ago.
Yeah, who's that attractive dark-headed guy wearing Cloud's outfit?
Yes.
Then Crisis Core will fill you in, and I don't know if it's going to tie into what happened at the end of 7 Remake, or whether they've just thrown a true port into the middle of a remake with a new. I don't know. It's all confusing.
Really
Square Enix
curious
doesn't
to
make sense.
To see next year's, because next year's the
remake too.
The remake, right?
Yeah.
I'm very curious to see where they go from there, because
Mm-hmm.
even though a lot of things kind of changed with it, they still also stayed relatively the same. But that ending segment of remake, I'm really curious what that next step is.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, the game's been out for a couple of years. Famously, Zack dies at the end of Crisis Core. So having him, and like he dies brutally, like and him versus an army, and then he's on the ground and he gets shot in the head. Like he dies brutally. With the ending of 7, with him standing there looking around saying, well, I guess that was it, and then walking away from the combat he was meant to die in. I'm a huge Zack fan, so I'm really hoping that we see a whole bunch more of him. That's definitely confusing, and yeah.
Well, he walks away with Cloud too.
Yeah, in the end of 7 Remake.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think what I do wonder what Reunion's going to end like, because that's the thing. If they called this Crisis Core Remake or Crisis Core Remaster, I would be more convinced that, okay, it's just going to be a 1-to-1 straight whatever, right?
Yep.
But I mean, I don't know. They're calling it weird shit. Like I maybe the preview parts are, largely the same.
That re-theming as well.
Yeah, because it's Rebirth.
Is the music the same, or did they kind of remix it like they did with Remake?
I have. If they have remixed the music, it has not been wholly apparent to me, but I can double check that.
I mean, that's one of my favorite components of Final Fantasy games. Is just
yeah. So they've got Remake, and we know that the second one is going to be called Rebirth,
right?
For the second Final Fantasy VII
Remake video game
trilogy. Yeah,
brought to you by Square Enix.
I can't call it the sequel. I guess it's a sequel. It's weird.
Yeah,
it's a sequel for Sephiroth, but for no one else.
Right. And then the only one that stands out is Intergrade or Intermission.
Well, it's Remake Intergrade. Yeah.
Right.
So, and for them to have Reunion as well is like, well, that thematically fits, but so far it just seems like a port, like a remade port, an enhanced port.
Right.
Have you beaten it?
I do not want to say one way or another at the moment.
Yep. Oh, okay.
Probably fair not to, right?
Yeah. Well, I was just curious if you had beaten it, would know the difference.
Even if he has, we shouldn't.
Well, yeah, if I have or have not, I cannot say at this time, because that is how things work in the industry.
Yes. But that game comes out on December 13th. 13th. Yeah. So like next week, a little later next week, but
yeah. So not the day after this podcast comes out, but the day after that, and I'll be able to chat. Well, I guess I won't want to chat full spoilers about it next weekend, because people still wouldn't have had their chance to get their hands on it. But the review should be out before too long.
Yes. So stay tuned. I'm excited for that. Definitely can't wait to pick that one up. Rhett, you've been playing DC's Midnight Suns. Sorry, Marvel's Midnight Suns.
Yep. The other video game universe things. Right. It was interesting talking about DC Universe video games and their impact on kind of the films and stuff like that while I'm playing Midnight Suns. Which, and I think I said this on the podcast a long time ago, probably early this year, when I saw a lot of Midnight Suns and that it was like card-based combat, I immediately waved it off. Because I was like, I am sick of card games. I am sick of like the deck building stuff. But then I started to see the reviews come out and see some of the footage, and I was like, okay, screw it, I'll give it a try. I'm fucking hooked.
Ooh.
It's XCOM, but instead of using abilities, you have a deck of cards. And those deck of cards do exactly what they say. So it's not like you're standing right next to the lizard waifu and shooting her point blank in XCOM, and it says you have a 78% chance and you miss. It's just they hit, and there's none of that frustration.
Oh, so there's no like percent chance of worrying, right?
Correct. It's just you play this card. I want to hit this enemy. Done. And I think one of my favorite components of the combat is that there's certain abilities that you do knockback, and you can slam enemies into each other to do extra damage, slam them into the environment, even like pick up boxes and throw them at people.
Kind of into the breach, like, yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
And I've found myself trying to, like, a lot of it is still tactical in terms of like, for some of them, it's purely just take out all the enemies. For others, you are trying to capture an important person. And so you've got to take down one of the enemies that has like a protective barrier over that person. And then you can play the card to capture them. And so there's some kind of strategy around that. Like, okay, I could focus on him, but then there's all these other enemies that are just going to light my dudes up. And then there's a little bit of movement. So there's none of the kind of XCOM move your characters into position type stuff. When you play an ability, your character moves into the right range to do it.
Oh, nice.
And then you get, like, at least for now, one move per turn. So that if, say, my magic is in the range of a barrel I'm going to blow up, I can move her and then play an ability to blow up that barrel.
Nice.
So the combat has taken me by surprise in terms of like
what kind of size squads do you control?
3. So 3 heroes. You go out on missions. There's story missions, there's general missions, and it's all intertwined. Like you're in this abbey essentially, and you have some of the Avengers there. You have this group called the Midnight Suns, who are made up of characters from other franchises. So you've got and this won't really spoil anything. You've got Ghost Rider, you've got Nico from Marvel's Runaways. You've got
I've heard Blade is in it, right?
Blade is in it, like Blade. Who else? Tony Stark, Doctor Strange, yeah. Magic from the X-Men.
Isn't Venom in it?
Venom is an enemy. Yeah. So okay. Spider-Man comes in at some point. Okay. I don't think
Wolverine.
I've unlocked every single Wolverine. I just discovered.
Yeah, because he's on the cover, so like
it's like
a big who's of the big names from Marvel across the franchises.
Yeah, and like Bruce Banner makes a small appearance because a lot of what's going on in the game is Gamma related, and so he's kind of like advising Tony, and Captain Marvel's in it. But throughout the game, like you're basically you're playing it in phases. So like you'll have a day phase where you'll go down to the forge, you'll craft new upgrades for the Abbey, upgrade cards, upgrade characters. You do like sparring. You can spar with a character once a day, and that increases your friendship level and offers additional like bonuses. And so there's this whole friendship component.
Can you sit down and have tea or potentially pet the heads of the people during the day as you're exploring the Abbey?
Yes. So you have a demon dog that you can pet every day, and there's benefits to doing that. There's also a cat you can pet.
I think Stretch wants to pet Wolverine. Can we pet Wolverine?
Probably not. But you can do these like hangouts. So like during the day phase, and then there's kind of the night phase that you get into after a mission. You can talk to people, answer questions, and based on your responses, you can gain friendship, or you can gain there's a light and dark component to where if you answer a lot of light questions, you start getting light abilities and vice versa.
Okay.
And it also unlocks like other things. But the friendship component is actually really good. Like the conversations with the characters are interesting, and they'll tie into things that we know have happened. I don't know where this is set because Wanda's still alive, but there's also kind of reference to what happened to her in the MCU. So it's definitely not canon. There's no way this is canon.
Right. Unlike the DC universe right now, the games and the movies are not.
It is very not in step, but there's still references to Thanos and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of what you know still kind of bleeds in a little bit. But the conversations with the characters are just they've taken me by surprise. The writing is very good in terms of like they really capture the personalities of Tony Stark and Ghost Rider and all that kind of stuff. So you find yourself not wanting to just blow through the story, but also like interact with the characters during the day and at night and all that kind of stuff.
And are all those conversations voice acted, or is it all reading?
They're all voice acted.
Wow. Okay.
And I mean, each conversation probably has 5 to 7 lines, each one with a different response to your dialogue choices. So it's a lot. There's a lot of meat there.
Right.
So does it seem like this will lead to a whole bunch of missable stuff down the line? Like, are you anticipating that there'll be like kind of conversations that you need to have a certain level of friendship to be able to progress further with? Or are there any missions that are like, oh, you need to be not just acquaintances but besties with
like loyalty quests?
It's tied into the Forge component. So you do research you get up every morning, and the main things you can do are talk to people, research the sparring, and then go out on missions. The Forge and the research is tied to things like take a certain character out on a certain number of missions, have a certain friendship level, craft items. Like a lot of the different components tie into improving the Abbey and adding additional bonuses. Like there's an upgrade for the sparring area that once you get it, you get more friendship or whatever. I can't remember what it is, but there's it kind of enhances what you've got.
Yeah, just systems that like funnel into each other to like let some scaling happen.
Right.
Exactly. And then around the Abbey is an open world. So like part of the story is that it involves Agatha a little bit. So there's a lot of kind of witchcraft references, but there's this world around the Abbey to explore and find other little tidbits. So you find like worn journal pages, and you're basically unlocking abilities and words of power through interacting with the world around the Abbey. And that's a core part of the story, is progressing through that. So you've got the mission component, and you can basically like, I think at one point I skipped the story mission like 10 times in a row and just kept doing general missions just to see if it was eventually be like, dude, play the fucking game.
And
but
it's still like,
it just lets me keep doing it, keep building up my decks, keep kind of getting more currency to build up the Abbey and stuff like that.
Nice.
So it's really kind of like play how you want for the most part. Like there's some things where it'll be like, hey, you need to do this story component. But overall, it doesn't force you to do anything.
That's pretty nice. I want to ask you about the card mechanic, because that's something I want to wrap my head around. So like you go out in a squad of 3, right? So is it like you have your Wolverine cards and your Blade cards and your etc. cards, or is it like the cards are kind of general, and then depending on which character you pick, it executes in a different way? Like how does all that interact?
Every character has its own deck, and so you have 8 cards in your deck, and then at the start of every turn you draw 3. And they're random. They could be any character's cards. And you get 3 card plays per turn, with the note that cards that have quick on them, if you KO an enemy, you get that card draw back or that card play back. So like there's incentive to taking out kind of this smaller level henchman with those quick cards, and then saving your more powerful cards for the larger enemies. Right. And then you can redraw. So if a good example is like Doctor Strange is KO'd right now, I can redraw his cards and use Iron Man's cards or something along those lines. But it's a pool of cards that you pull from.
Right, and it's character specific cards. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
And then you can upgrade those cards to kind of add extra bonuses as well.
Oh, like the Battlefront 2 loot boxes.
Sure. Less predatory?
Hopefully.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's, at least from what I've seen, there's no monetization either. It's purely, everything's like, every cosmetic is tied to either unlocking chests in the world or crafting or kind of friendship level stuff.
Yeah. I think if you buy like the super special editions, you get like free, like not free, you get costumes as part of it that you pay for, but
Probably.
otherwise, yeah, it sounds like you can also craft or find other costumes in the game too, which is neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of components. I don't think I've unlocked everything yet. Like I just unlocked the gift shop to where at night characters will want to like hang out. And so you can be like, I want to go play video games with Tony Stark.
Nice.
And
He's
you
a
can
pro
give
gamer.
Tony, pro gamer. Absolutely, at least kicks your ass in the cutscene. And then you can like give gifts, and so you can tailor some gifts to specific people. Like I gave Nico a candle that had some witchcraft level of focus to it, and she liked that a lot.
Nice.
So there's kind of that component as well, to where you can kind of get to know the characters and give them gifts that they like.
Hi, Mr. Tony Stark. I bought you this $12 box of chocolates. Please be my friend.
Yeah.
Last question from me. How many hours in are you? And just based on that, how many more do you expect before you roll credits?
I'm 11 hours in.
Wow.
And a lot of that has been just kind of exploring and playing missions and stuff like that. Like the gameplay loop is very satisfying. In a lot of games where you have a bunch of missions, I feel like I've usually gotten kind of tired because, and I think it's because that this like relationship aspect isn't a part of it.
Right.
And you don't kind of like get familiar with and get kind of attached to the characters as easily. Like obviously in XCOM, if your character dies, they die. There's no further interaction.
Right.
So I'll be curious to see kind of how it proceeds from here. They keep introducing new villains. So like one of the early ones is Venom. Then there's Sabretooth is who I just ran into. And I don't know who's after that. So
can't wait to see Darkseid in this one.
It makes sense that they're doubling down into Agatha too, with everything going on there. Because tell you what, Marvel definitely doesn't have things narratively tie into each other, but product placement is there.
100%.
Yeah, it is very witchcraft focused. In terms of the story, and like you're literally in an abbey in a multi-dimensional Salem. So
dope.
It's and you have like magic. She opens up portals to the real world or like the outside world for you to go on missions.
Right. Okay.
So there's kind of that Doctor Strange multi-dimensional aspect to it as well.
Wait, so this is just the Dragon Ball Xenoverse of the Marvel games. That's what this is, right?
Yes, I haven't played Dragon Ball Xenoverse, so
it's a similar idea. You're like in this weird pocket dimension, and you go into the real world, and
yeah, exactly, yeah. And they even kind of address that a bit in that, and right at the start of the game, it's Tony Stark, Doctor Strange, and original Ghost Rider. And then you get back to the Abbey, and it's Robbie Reyes, Ghost Rider.
Interesting.
And then there's, magic is no longer a part of the X-Men, and there's definitely a lot of like not canon things going on, like things that aren't, universally held. So they're definitely taking some liberties and really making it interesting.
Right.
That's fun though. It's always good to go into a new Marvel property and be like, okay, what's the setup here? Like what's going on? What has happened? What hasn't happened? Who has what abilities at this time? That kind of stuff.
And they walk you through it too. Like you literally talk to each character and ask questions. And like it'll give you, if you decide to, you can skip that part if you want. But like
that's cool.
You can talk to Blade about his backstory. And at one point he's, talking about all of this, like he's literally writing like a vampire fighting book, which I thought was hilarious. And just these unique little conversations that may have never been a touch point if they hadn't done this.
Right.
So,
Cool.
That's fun.
highly recommend if you're into Marvel in any way, shape, or form.
Marvel's Midnight Suns. Probably a big surprise, the biggest surprise of the past week, I feel like.
This is my game of the year contender at the moment. Like I'm
Wow.
enjoying it that much.
Wow.
And I think for a lot of reviewers, it was in the 9 to 9.5 range as well. So this
Yeah.
is a very late end of year like sleeper, I think.
Nice. Well, I've been playing another, not late end of year, but an end of year.
Definitely a game of the year contender.
I've been playing Sonic Frontiers.
Definitely a game that released this year.
It is one of the games of the year. I think my favorite thing about the game so far is I was playing it, and then my girlfriend was in the other room, and she was just hearing the game. Okay, just hearing the sound effects and the music, and then she comes in without her glasses on and looks at the screen. And it's like, oh, why are you playing Breath of the Wild again? Which is maybe my favorite thing about
Amazing.
the game.
Perfection.
Truly amazing, because that game, it sounds like Breath of the Wild. All of the sound effects, every time you solve a puzzle, it sounds just like you solved the puzzle in a shrine from Breath of the Wild.
Man.
Yeah, and then of course the first world is that big green open field, which can look a lot like Hyrule or parts of Hyrule, right? So it very much is the game where Sonic Team looked at Nintendo creating Breath of the Wild and were like, we want to do that, but for Sonic. And that's exactly what I've been playing is Sonic Breath of the Wild. All of that aside, though, I still think this is definitely the best Sonic game to come out since Mania, like easily, and even before that. Like, I mean, it does feel
the first
fresh.
Good 3D Sonic game in a long time.
Yeah, since Generations, I think.
Yeah.
But no, it feels pretty good to run around and do your Sonic things. I'm glad that a majority of the gameplay is just play on him running, because I mean, he's Sonic, right? He runs fast. That's kind of his whole shtick. And so like, even the side loop thing, which you've seen him do that in the trailers and the gameplay, where he like kind of creates a blue line and like trails around him, and if you create a circle and you close the loop, it does like a big hurricane in the middle. So you use that to solve puzzles, you use that in fights, you use that to like take off armor and stuff like that. So it's a nice mechanic that plays on his strengths. The rest of the combat is there. It just keep mashing square and Sonic hits them. It's very not that deep. They give you these extra abilities, like if you keep mashing square and then you press triangle, you do a quick side loop, or you keep mashing square and then you press this button and that button, you do a big stomp or a zigzag and stomp on them again. You know, they add these flashy things, but at the end of the day, it's just like you're hitting them to do damage and they blow up. But it's very straightforward, right? It's not very mechanically deep. And I wouldn't say like it's a basic level of satisfying, but I feel like it will not be satisfying if I keep playing this for another 10 hours, because it's kind of the same thing, right? But yeah, I think I'm overall enjoying Sonic Frontiers. It's better than I think anyone was expecting, which is like, you know, not bad, right?
I mean, that's the consensus on Twitter too, is that it took a lot of people by surprise.
Yeah. And the cyberspace levels are nice. They're just short enough where they break up the pace a bit, and they feel like, you know, a good 3D Sonic level. So if you're looking for that, the cyber levels are pretty good for it, but they're only like a minute or two long. They're nice little bite-sized things. It's fun to keep going back through them to like S rank it and collect
some of
all
those
the
time
things.
trials are fucking hard too.
Yeah, one of the first ones, like 1, 2, that one's fucking hard. The rest of them, I've gotten everything done.
Yeah,
But that one was, I still haven't tried that one yet. Yeah,
it's weird.
Yeah, but yeah, Sonic Frontiers ain't bad. Story so far is bad though. It's not believable. The voice acting is pretty mid, and the story is just kind of I don't know. It's told in a way that feels very like late 90s anime, where it's all kind of disconnected a bit. Yeah. Because like to unlock the story, right, or like the cutscenes, you have to go, like, you find Amy in the world and you have to give her these hearts, and if you just roam around the world, you collect them. So you're kind of running from point A to point B, just like activating cutscenes until the story happens. So it just, I don't know, it doesn't quite feel as integrated.
And it's also like all of the things that you need to get, the hearts, the gears and stuff, like the gears that open the 3D levels, they're just kind of like dropped by enemies.
Yeah.
I've only played a little bit of it myself, but there didn't seem to be too much rhyme or reason as to, like, I'd just be fighting an enemy in the overworld and it'd be like, boom, you got a gear. But then I'd also fight like one of those like giant colossus things that you'd need to run up the side and hit and stuff. And then it'd be like, you got a gear. It's like, the same reward? What?
Yeah, like with the first time you get a gear, they're very like, this is a very important item, which to me sounds like, oh, these are like Chaos Emerald level, like unique and rare. But no, you get them from the big enemies, and then every time a blood moon happens, it's not a blood moon, it's not called that, but it's basically a similar mechanic. All the big bosses respawn anyway, so you could theoretically farm the gears. So not that you need to. I've never felt the need where I'm like, I've run into a thing where I'm like, I don't have the resource to do it. Like, I've never had that so far. I'm maybe 6-7 hours in, still on the first island, but I think I'm getting close to like finishing it.
I think I've played like the first 4 or 5 3D levels and then just explored the island. It's cool.
Yeah, the island is nice.
Finding Koroks. I mean,
Cocos. Not Koroks. Cocos.
and checks notes, turning them in for speed upgrades and attack upgrades.
Yep.
Definitely not Koroks at all.
No. Oh, this is kind of weird though. There's something that is definitely annoying me right now is you can only at first hold up to 400 rings. I think you can upgrade your ring wallet eventually, but I find no use for that when you can, like, it's either your speed or your ring capacity. And I'm like, why the fuck would you not upgrade your speed? Like, ever. And so when you hit 400 rings maximum, the game stops to play a cutscene of Sonic charging up and getting a blue aura and electricity, and like the camera swings around him and then zooms in on his eyes, and he like closes his eyes and he opens them and looks at the camera determined, because then when you have 400, like your maximum ring count, you can move a little bit faster, which is great because your boost is like super fast, and then your normal running is just a little faster, but the boost is like fucking, you go fast, right? But it's so weird and jarring that a game about moving fast moves to a standstill to play a 4-second cutscene to tell you
constantly
you can go faster.
Yes.
I think you can also then, like, you know, like that's good, but you can also give yourself a bit of a speed boost anyway by just like drawing a psi loop. Or if you draw a psi loop in the infinity symbol, then you get infinite max boost.
Oh, is that? Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So it's like collect 400 coins and that don't get hit because you'll lose a shit ton of coins, or just draw an 8 on its side on the ground, and then you can go fast for as long as you fucking want.
Yeah.
Because that when you immediately invalidates the stamina system.
Yeah. Although when you max out your rings, though, that boost is super fast. So having an infinite super fast boost, that's not bad.
Yeah. No, there's definitely a benefit. I guess the first island never felt large enough to.
No.
Yeah.
It's like if you run from one end of the island to the other, it would take you maybe like a minute and a half with infinite boost. Like, it's not that big to the point where you can't find your way around, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that does it for this week's episode of the Tech Raptor podcast. We hope you guys enjoyed. And if you did, please feel free to leave a review on whatever platform you are listening on and let us know in the comments down below. Have you picked up Marvel Midnight Suns? Is there anyone that's your favorite so far? Do you like Blade and his vampire fighting book? Is that what you said? Fighting guide?
I think
Survival
so,
guide? Yeah. If you're enjoying all of that, let us know in the comments below. Chime in with your favorite party member. You can also follow us on Twitter while that's still alive, or Instagram and TikTok. We're looking for, we're looking to just chat with you guys, interact, let us know there. We will chat here. It'll be a nice little dual conversation going on. If you want more stuff from us, news, features, reviews, etc., we will be at techraptor.net. But if you want more of this show, we will be back next Monday, and we will see you then. Bye.